lightheaded. No. Strangely enough, it's the same feeling I get when I go very attacking. Ha! Hello and welcome to another video. It's your boy Zealand, and we're talking about something that a lot of people have asked me about, which is typically most things I make tutorials about these days, and that is the mentality that you put on your tactic. And I am in a great mental state because we have merch. Well, you don't, but I got sent the samples, and just keep your eyes peeled for a lot of cool stuff coming in the future. I'm very excited about it. It's exceptionally comfortable. Maybe that's just because my normal wardrobe cost me about $10 total, but it's very comfortable. I've been giving away a few teasers about like the merch and other stuff on Twitch as well. I recently played CK3 with Work the Space, which was fun. If you want to check all that stuff out down in the description, it is down there for you to click and follow. But I'm guessing you already knew that, so let's get to mentality. So mentality is the thing that when you go to tactics and you open up tactics and you click here, it's the overarching thing in the top left corner of your entire tactic. And it is what dictates essentially what's happening in the rest of your tactic. But up until now, this video, it's probably been a fairly abstract, straightforward concept for you. So the way I'm going to structure this video is we're going to start at very defensive and walk our way down to very attacking, and we are going to read and we are going to go over the difference it makes from the previous step. And that's it. And we're going to do it in a way where I don't waste too much oxygen, which is very hard for me, and then subsequently for Reese. I always feel bad for Reese. Okay, so we will be starting, obviously, on very defensive. This is a mentality, probably like very attacking, that you use the least. Everybody always tends to try and hang out in the mean because it's a little less extreme. Very defensive is unique. Out of all of the mentalities, very defensive is the only mentality where your team is not attempting to score. Wait. If I start talking like that, you're going to assume I haven't done the research, so let me lay down some ground rules for how this stuff works. Each player in your tactic has their own personal mentality. Here, let me show you. Click on somebody and click edit. And up at the top, there is a mentality. Each player has their own mentality. And there is a great article that I have read, and if you really want to dive even further into this, I would recommend you read too, that is linked down in the description. It's done by Random FM Stuff, and they go way over the top with the research into this. But this player mentality is affected by the overall team mentality. It's not the only thing that's affected by the overall team mentality. We'll get to that in this video and in subsequent videos. But as your team mentality changes, the personal mentality of each player is changing, as well as what that player is broadly going to look to do. So Johnny Cano has a balanced mentality. He is playing on the left wing, he is on attacking, but when we are on very defensive, it is on balanced. When I go up to attacking, just to show you that this actually does change, he's on very attacking mentality as a player because he has the attack duty already. So all of this is changing while we go through these different mentalities on the left side. Capiche? Capiche. So back to very defensive where we were before. This is the only mentality where your team is not trying to score. This mentality is completely different than every other mentality here because I don't think you should ever, unless you are San Marino playing Brazil, you're San Marino, you're in World Cup qualifying, you're playing Spain. You might want to do this. Other than that, you don't need to do this. Very defensive is for the last 10 minutes. You are not trying to score at all. Not on counterattacking at all. And even players that you have on an attacking mentality, which obviously you don't want to have a ton of players on an attacking mentality playing very defensive because then they're going to be balanced. But even the players on attacking mentality will have no particular aggressive tendencies when you're playing on very defensive. I'm sure it's possible to score on very defensive. It is not the goal. Every other mentality, the goal is to score. If you're in stoppage time and up by 1 goal and it's a tight one, this is not a bad thing to go to. Just takes away your punching power, but ups your shaking and bacon. And I'm married to the shakes and the bakes. Defensive is our next mentality. And on defensive, what is really interesting, besides the fact that I have hair in my mouth, of mysterious origin. What is really interesting is that the individual player mentalities don't change at all. I mean, random FM stuff actually goes through and makes a table that we'll show you for each one of these mentalities going forward. It doesn't change from very defensive to defensive. It doesn't. So what does change? Well, for that, Football Manager is really our only source of information. And that in defensive, you are looking to be organized and counterattack, which is something that is expressly denied in very defensive, is embraced in defensive. But there's a caveat which seems to separate defensive from cautious, which is now going to be my regular recommendation for when you're looking to counter people. And that is that defensive, when the counterattack is not on early, they switch it off and you don't really get a lot of bodies forward after that. This is due to a difference in overall mindset that is put forward by the mentality. So they will get the ball and look for the counter. If it is not there immediately or it does not look promising, they will pull the plug. So this is, I'm playing in the League Cup against a team 2 divisions above me. We're going to play defensive. And if we take a really obvious counter because they're missing both their fullbacks forward, then we're going to take advantage of that. But we are not done with interesting things, because now I'm going to go up to cautious. And this is where I continue to find this incredibly fascinating, is that on cautious, the player mentality, which of course is still dependent on their role and their duty, right? If I put Cano as an inside forward on attack, he's going to be on a positive mentality instead of a balanced mentality, because an inside forward's looking to get even further up the field. If you keep them on the same thing and go all the way from very defensive to cautious, the mentality of the players will not change at all. The only player whose mentality will change is the goalkeeper, which is why I basically said nobody. If you have a sweeper keeper on attack, all of a sudden their mentality goes up to positive instead of the balance that it was on before. And there's a reason for that too, because on cautious, you don't bail out of counterattacks when it doesn't look like it's immediately going to be successful. You look to counter with ease, and you use cautious when you are expecting to be able to counter with ease, but you want to be responsible. The way that Football Manager words it is good for matches where you expect to lose the battle for possession, but you still feel like you can hang. You feel like you can break. You feel like you can put talented players in areas where they can succeed. And so while you're not changing the mentality of the players that are on the field, when they receive the ball, they'll look to play with more confidence, the type of confidence that maybe if you always play on defensive against better teams, you feel like your team is lacking in terms of pushing the ball up the field. And so these bottom 3 do not change anywhere the mentality of the players on the field. They change what the players are looking to do with the ball once it has been acquired, and not necessarily what areas they're running into, but how eager they are to move. And this is reflected in the limitations to the tempo that is caused by the change here. If I'm playing on very defensive, then all of a sudden I'm going to be on slightly lower tempo. If I'm playing on defensive, it's on standard. If I'm playing on cautious, it's on slightly higher. This is the generic preset and moves the goalpost farther forward for getting the ball up the field. It's all on the mentality. It just sets the parameters for you then to make changes inside of those parameters. But if you set your parameters over here, well, they should be here, you're screwing yourself before you even start setting up the rest of your tactic. And that's why this video is important. I should have started with that. That brings us to balanced, which I think, despite the fact that its name would make you believe it's a very simple mentality and there's nothing fancy about it, I think balanced is actually the most complicated way to start a match. You use balanced when you're going into a match that you either don't know what to expect, or you know that the teams are even and you want to see how the match plays out on the day. It is very likely that you should never play a complete match on balanced. Balanced is how you want to feel things out, and then you go to cautious, or then you go to positive, or then you go farther in one direction or farther in the other, depending on how the match has gone and how your game plan has been instituted in terms of instructions. So when you are on balance, the mentality of every player in your formation, they all go up one to essentially match what you're seeing. So if somebody is on a attack duty, they have an attacking mentality. If somebody's on support duty, they have a balanced mentality, right? Somebody's on a defensive duty, they have a defensive mentality. It just levels everything out, and it gives you the opportunity to see whether your team's going to be better or worse than the team that you're playing. This is fascinating to me because how many times in Football Manager do you end up in a situation where you aren't quite sure how confident you should be going into the match? Start it balanced and then react. Have a tactical plan going in both directions, but then you start at balance and you react from there. And just know and realize that the difference between balanced and cautious is one mentality across the board, which is a change that has not happened from very defensive to cautious. It's a big difference on how aggressive your players are going to be. It brings you from, I have no real world examples. It's a big notch up, turning up the knob. Big. And it also brings us to the halfway point in talking about these mentalities. So I want to take a moment to say, well, what about all these other instructions? And can't you change how this mentality is playing with all these instructions? Go back to the goalpost thing. You can, to a certain extent. At a certain point, you can't take an inside forward and make them do things that a winger is going to do. There are certain things, and this is just the way that Football Manager works, that are locked for a winger that you cannot change. And they will tell you about those things in their written descriptions and with the ways that it affects the players in front of us. Replay that as many times as you need to, because there's very, very high-minded stuff we're talking about for a video game, but really important to know. Which brings us to positive. And now we are obviously into the offensive side of things, which if you are playing a lot of Football Manager, this is probably where you're going to be living if you like to start with good teams and bad leagues, as I recommend for new players. And unlike the very defensive to cautious, where nothing is changing, balanced to positive changes a lot. Balanced is the uncomfortable middle point, but when we look at the mentality map of the players, went up a whole one again. And if you have somebody on an attacking duty on positive, they are very attacking. What does very attacking mean? Here's the best theory. So in the old versions of the game, mentality was on a scale from 1 to 20. And you'd assume that 1 is very defensive and then 20 is very attacking. What we don't know about the way the game is set up now is Football Manager always tries to hide these actual numerical values from us in order to make the game more immersive, which they clearly succeed at, is how much of a range is on very attacking. Is it just 20? Or is it like 17 to 20 on this scale that qualifies as very attacking? What I can tell you for sure, thank you to this test from random FM stuff, is that it does put you in that top range when you're on positive if you have an attacking duty. So positive is a very aggressive way to approach things. And what the game tells us about positive is actually very interesting too, and informed me. It's like amazing that you just don't read this stuff sometimes. Positive is for a more patient attacking game. It says that midfielders and the fullbacks will only missile ahead of the forward line to add to the attack in verifiably risk-free situations, but they're not really going to roll the dice, and you are looking to be wary of counter-attacking play. And that seems to be the largest difference between playing with positive and playing with attacking, which is where I typically recommend people to hang out when they are the better team. I like to recommend playing as attacking. And what the game very clearly tells us about the switch from positive to attacking is you are becoming more direct and you are playing with a higher tempo. While positive is typically what a Barcelona would play as, if you are playing as Leicester City and you're playing a bad team, you're looking to play attacking. You're looking to play with a high tempo. You're looking to play with directness. So the general framework of an attacking tactic is going to be more direct, higher tempo, and a positive tactic is going to be less direct, lower tempo, still very offensive. Don't get it twisted, but lower tempo. And the emphasis in the attacking tactic is to get players forward into attacking spaces more so than in a positive tactic, as you'd probably guess, and with more speed. What happens in the layout of random FM stuff's mentality maps when we get to attacking from positive? Well, as you might have guessed, as you saw from defensive to cautious, absolutely nothing. The difference on the player mentality map is nothing between positive and attacking. It is almost how tidy do you want to be responding to a counterattack. This reevaluates the whole way that I think about these mentalities. I mean, this is a paradigm shifting video for me to make after this research. But then we get a final jump and very attacking. How feasible is it to use the highest level mentality on that 1 to 20 scale that we were setting up? And as you can expect in a mirroring from the defensive half behind balanced, this is for very specific situations and very specific situations only, just like very defensive, unless you are Spain playing San Marino. And then that's the situation that you want to use it. I mean, the line of the game description for very attacking literally starts, "We're trying to go for broke." You know, like they're letting you know you are trying to overload the final third in terms of numbers. Your mentality is based on just extremely up there, like 2 center backs and everybody else is up the field sort of playing. Maybe Manchester City uses this type of stuff against like Norwich, but they freaking lost to Norwich last year. So go Canaries, right? Yeah, it's Canaries. Canary yellow colors, lovely. And that change in mentality is interesting in terms of where it puts the goalposts, but just the same as the other way around, it does not change anything on the mentality map. So is very attacking viable? Probably not. Positive and very attacking, the mentality map's exactly the same on what it's doing to these players, at least within its ranges on that timeline. That's in the same range. It's not changing a whole lot. It's just changing the goalposts for your instructions. Wild to me. Which means just going on very attacking isn't going to immediately get 35 guys into the opposition area. You need to move people up and put them in roles and positions where it's going to allow them to be very attacking. You can't just go into very attacking with only 3 people on attacking roles like this mentality map is showing you. If you go on to very attacking and you want to try and make a difference, you need to get people up the field. You need to turn them into attacking so that they all of a sudden have a very attacking player mentality and they are able to actually take advantage of your newfound aggression that has been introduced because of the mentality. The game, to me, on mentality comes down to how many forward runs are being made. You want to boil it down to one way to think about it. How free are your players to go? On defensive, not very free at all, and if it's not there immediately, they won't go for it. On very attacking, they'll go for literally every opportunity that they possibly have within reason at their position. Well, I mean, there is no reason on very attacking. They will leave their position as much as humanly possible to get forward. But unfortunately, some of the stuff that is behind mentality is hidden from view, and we just have to take our best guesses at it. But it's hard work like random FM stuff and other people in the community. That's just the one that I decided to cite for this video that allows me to make videos like this that synthesize all of this information and then provide it to you in a way that allows you to use these different mentalities in your situations and actually know what's happening. There is a lot of individual agency and a lot of tactic creation that goes on outside of just picking the mentality, but picking the mentality right allows you to succeed, and adapting not only with instructions, not only with player roles and everything else, but with a mentality that's agreeing with those player roles and those instructions is something that's just going to be able to elevate your game to the next level. It's going to prevent those types of lapses that can cost you points and cost you seasons, Champions Leagues, and everything else. So enjoy. Let me know your thoughts. Honestly, I have a headache. I've done way too much thinking, so we need to go back to making stupid videos about what happens when Messi goes to Man City, or making picks where I'm completely wrong about Messi going to Man City. That really screwed me, man. I was confident in those picks, and then I wasn't. Hopefully this video about mentalities has changed your mentality.